Welcome back to TC Talk Sports. The NBA regular season is finally here. We are blessed what is going to be an incredible NBA season this year. I have to keep the team previews rolling along. In today's video, we'll be discussing the Atlanta Hawks, the Trae Young-led Atlanta Hawks. Let's get into it. YouTube, TikTok, blah, blah, blah. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Follow TC Talk Sports on TikTok. Follow along on this journey. Preview for every single NBA team, plus more NBA and NFL, MLB, NHL content throughout the seasons. Follow, subscribe, just do it. The Atlanta Hawks last season, 36-46, 10th in the East. They lost to the Bulls in the play-in tournament, ending their season. Dealt with some injuries, bit of an up and down year for Atlanta. They were 5th in the league with 118.3 points per game, 6th in total team rebounds. Defensively, bit of a nightmare for Atlanta, giving up 120.5 points per game. That was 28th in the league. Team shot 49.5% against them, also 28th in the league, and also 28th with 38.4% three-point shooting against them. So everyone knows the Hawks can score. Clint Capella, Trae Young, no DeJounte Murray anymore, but that defense was a nightmare last year. Trae Young, he was limited to 54 games last season. He did average 36 minutes per game, which was first in the entire league. 48 minutes at an NBA game. He played 36 of them every night, scoring 25.7 points per game. Shot 37.3% from three, really his strong suit, shooting threes and making assists. He set a career high with 10.8 assists last year. Fantastic ball handler. He needs to improve his three-point shooting percentage, but you know, him dishing out assists is always going to be up there, 8, 9, 10 per game. I think he might set a new career high this year, 10.8 last year. Very impressive year for him. DeJounte Murray, he played 78 games for the Hawks last year, got that starting point guard role, that main primary ball handler whenever Trae Young wasn't playing. He is now on the Pelicans. He set a career high, averaging 22.5 points per game. Last season, shot 36.3% from three. Again, he can shoot the three, but he's not the most efficient or best three-point shooter. He took 7.1 three-point attempts per game last year, something we haven't really seen out of DeJounte Murray. Now with the new team, I think that number will go down, obviously, because they have other three-point shooters on the Pelicans now. But he had 6.4 assists and averaged 1.4 steals per game last year for the Hawks. Not a bad defender. He's long, super athletic, can get his arms and hands in those passing lanes, deflect passes, come up with some steals. Obviously 1.4 steals per game last year. Not a bad spot for him to be at, but the defense as a whole just struggled. Bogdanovic, who I think is going to have a really good year this season, especially shooting-wise. Last year he set a career high with 16.9 points per game while shooting 37.4% from three. Averaged 3.1 assists and a career high 1.2 steals per game. So he was trying to chip in with some defense last year, but just overall wasn't working for the Hawks. Bogdanovic is a really good three-point shooter. We also saw that in the Olympics this summer, but NBA-wise, he takes a lot of threes. He makes a lot of them. One of the best shooters from the wings. Just a really good shooter overall. His bread and butter is catch and shoot threes, which ends up working perfectly with Trae Young as his point guard. Jalen Johnson, another super interesting player to watch for going into this season. Now in his fourth year from Duke. He played 33 minutes per game last season. He got some starts last year, mostly coming off the bench, but he averaged 16 points per game, shot 51% from the field, shot 35.5% from three. He's a big guy, power forward. You can see him at the small forward position, but he can dribble, shoot, play defense. We saw it all last year. 8.7 rebounds and 3.6 assists. He had some big assist number games when Trae Young was out because he proved that he can be a primary ball handler, and I think we'll continue to see that this season with Jalen Johnson bringing the ball up the floor multiple times a game for the Hawks, but not saying he's an MVP, not saying he's an all-star type of player yet, but definitely a key part to this Hawks team, especially if they want to keep up those offensive numbers. I think this Hawks team might not be that good, but they have some good pieces like those guys I just mentioned. Clint Capella at the center. DeAndre Hunter, one of my favorite players in the league for whatever reason, similar to Keegan Murray. He just shows up, he plays defense, works hard, he can shoot threes. Didn't have a great year last year, but coming out of the University of Virginia, defense is just like implemented into his head, and he shows up every night on the defensive side of the floor, and they're going to need him to step up this year if they want to improve those really terrible defensive numbers from last year. Offseason, the Hawks were blessed with the number 1 overall pick. A lot of people saying this was a really weak draft. I don't completely agree with that. I think there's some diamonds in the rough here in this year's draft. A lot of people saying this number 1 overall pick was probably the worst first pick in draft history. Zachary Richache out of France, 19 years old, 6'9", 195, obviously tall, big wingspan. He's athletic, but I think he will need to put on some muscle to be able to really compete in the NBA. He's a good shooter. He's a good perimeter defender. He looked good in the preseason, averaged 16 points per game, shot 60% from the field, attempted 9 threes total, made 4 of them, and grabbed 11 total rebounds. I mean, he can kind of do everything for the Hawks. Similar to DeJounte Murray, maybe not as good of a ball handler and passer as Murray was, but I can definitely see Richache getting to that level. Is he the best number 1 pick of all time? Definitely not, but I think it's a good pick for the Hawks, and I think he's going to be better than a lot of people think he's going to be. On my TikTok, TCtalkssports, go follow that. I ranked a bunch of rookies on how probable it was for them to win Rookie of the Year. He was in my sorta, kinda, maybe category, saying that I think he's better than a lot of people think or expecting him to be. So I'm very interested and excited to watch this young man play for this team this year. And I think he's going to put up a lot of stats. Hawks play fast. They want to score a lot. I think he's going to help with that perimeter defense, lower that three-point percentage that the opponents were shooting. Almost dead last. They were 28th in that category. So I think he's going to help with that. Offseason, Hawks also signing Larry Nance Jr. and Dyson Daniels in that Pelicans deal with DeJounte Murray. I mean, not great additions for them. I think Dyson Daniels being out there on the wing is going to have more of an impact than Larry Nance Jr. will for this team. But if Clint Capella goes down with an injury or they need another big guy playing a bigger lineup, they can throw Larry Nance in there. He is super athletic. Can't really shoot. We saw some improved passing ability with him last year on the Pelicans. Outside of having the number 1 overall pick in the draft, not a crazy offseason for the Hawks, a team expected not to do too well this season, but a player to watch. I'm going with Kobe Buffkin, now in his 2nd year out of Michigan. Last year, played 11 minutes per game, 4.8 points per game. He's definitely on the smaller side for a guard, but good ball handling skills. He's a good shooter. I think he's going to get more minutes this season, especially if there's any sort of injury to Trae Young. They should. If I was the Hawks, I would let him get more minutes, get more comfortable with the NBA game. He'll probably also spend time in the G League at some point, but I think he's going to end up being a really good offensive player, good shooter, good ball handler. Again, sample size has been small from last year coming into his 2nd year. Don't think he's going to play too much. I think he should, but if he is on the floor, definitely watch out for Kobe Buffkin. My prediction for the Atlanta Hawks in this 2025 season, right now I'm thinking that they're going to miss the playoffs. If anything, they're going to be one of the lowest, maybe the lowest seed for the play-in. Trae Young has to stay healthy, 4th and foremost. Defense definitely has to improve. I don't know how much it will going into this season, especially with a young, smaller rookie who's going to take up some more minutes for him. I think the offense will be about the same, quick, fast pace. Trae Young, other guys shooting threes. Trae Young dishing assists, throwing lobs to Johnson, Clint Capella. But overall, I just don't see the Hawks. Wow. Overall, I don't see the Hawks having a whole lot of success this season. Definitely kind of like they're stuck in like a rebuild phase. They got Trae Young, DeAndre Hunter, Jalen Johnson, but then they have some older guys also. But overall, don't think it's going to be a great year. Definitely a fun team to watch, but not going to be a successful year. I'm just going to go and say the last seed in the play-in tournament or miss the playoffs for the Atlanta Hawks.